Have you ever felt like you're just treading water? In a job, maybe a relationship, or just your daily routine. It's not awful, but it's definitely not amazing either. It's just fine. Well, it turns out that fine might be one of the most dangerous places you can possibly be. So today, we're going to dive into this really weird idea, the trap of the good enough.
I know it sounds completely backwards, right? But just think about it for a second. A real crisis, like getting fired or a huge breakup, it forces your hand. You have to act. But it's that low-grade, chronic unhappiness that can keep us stuck in the same place for years. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today, the psychology behind this whole paradox.
Okay, to really get this, check out this analogy. It's perfect. If you break your leg, there's zero debate. You're going straight to the hospital, you get a cast, and the healing starts right away. But a minor sprain? You might just limp on it for weeks, maybe months, never really dealing with it properly. And there it is right there. The more serious problem actually gets a faster, better solution. The tolerable pain just lingers. So if that's the problem, why do we put up with that lingering sprain? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look at how we think about the future. And it turns out our internal crystal ball is kind of broken. We are consistently wrong about one really important thing, how we're going to feel down the road.
And there's actually a name for this. It's called effective forecasting. And we do it all the time, whether we realize it or not. Every decision we make, from which order for dinner to what career to choose, it's based on a prediction of how that outcome is going to make us feel.
But here's the kicker, and the research backs us up. We are systematically terrible at it. We think winning the lottery is going to make us deliriously happy forever, and we think a breakup is going to destroy us for months on end. But as this study says, we predict these way more powerful emotional swings than we actually end up feeling. And you don't have to take my word for it. Here is the cold, hard data. In a study involving financial offers, you can see this clear gap. For both good news and bad news, what people thought they'd feel was way more intense than what they actually felt. This overestimation has a name. It's called the impact bias. So, you might be wondering, if our predictions are so off, why aren't we all just emotional wrecks? Well, it's thanks to something called our psychological immune system. Think of it like a little PR team in your subconscious. When a real disaster hits, it jumps into action. It spins the story, helps us find the silver lining, and gets us to focus on the future. It's an unbelievably powerful system. But, and this is the crucial catch, it only gets activated for the big emergencies. All right, so let's put all the clues together. We've got our totally faulty emotional predictions, and we have this powerful immune system that only shows up for a crisis. When you mash those two things together, you get the big reveal. You get the reason why good enough is so incredibly deceptive. And this is it. It's called the region beta paradox. A truly terrible situation, let's call that region alpha, is like a 5-alarm fire. It sets off every alarm, our psychological immune system rushes in, and we are forced to act. But a mess situation, that's region beta, it's just a leaky faucet. It's annoying for sure, but it's not bad enough to call in the professionals. So we just let it drip and drip, sometimes for years. And once you learn about this, you start seeing it absolutely everywhere. That relationship with no major fights, but also no real passion. The job that pays the bills, but kind of drains your soul a little bit every single day. The work team that delivers just enough to not get in trouble so nobody ever asks them to be great. These situations just don't set off the alarms that would make us change. So we get the trap. It makes sense. But how do we build the resilience to actually escape it? For a surprisingly powerful answer, we're going to step out of our heads for a minute and into a lake. When we think of being resilient, we usually think of variety, having lots of different skills or options. But what if that's totally wrong? A really cool study of lakes suggests the real key to resilience is something else entirely. So get this. Researchers studied over 100 lakes, and they found something that blew my mind. It wasn't the variety of native plants, what they called species richness, that kept invasive species out. Nope. The secret weapon was density. A thick, concentrated, focused community of native plants was the absolute best defense against invaders. And that is just a brilliant metaphor for our own lives, isn't it? A life that's filled with scattered, just okay commitments, a decent job, an okay relationship, a few half-hearted hobbies. It's like a lake with low plant density. It just doesn't have the focused energy it needs to fight off that invasive species we call stagnation. Okay, so enough about the problem. Let's talk solutions. If you recognize you're stuck in this comfort trap, what can you actually do about it? How do you build that density and finally break the inertia?
Well, there's actually a pretty clear, actionable path forward. So how do we get out? Here's a 3-step plan. First, you've got to raise your own awareness. Get brutally honest with yourself about the hidden costs of staying put. Second, run small, low-risk experiments. Don't quit your job tomorrow. Maybe just take one online class to test the waters. And third, and this one is huge, you have to completely reframe the question. Instead of asking, is this bad enough to leave? Start asking yourself, how amazing could this actually be? Of course, even with a perfect plan, escaping the trap isn't that easy. We have to be real here. Breaking that inertia is a serious challenge, and sometimes even our best efforts can have, well, complicated results. For example, take the study on a digital therapy app. People used it, and they said they liked it, but it didn't really move the needle on the big stuff. It created small improvements, but not on their core issues. It was a good enough solution that didn't create deep, meaningful change. And that's a powerful reminder that escaping this trap takes more than just a quick fix. It's real work. And so that brings us right to the final thought. The true enemy of a great life might not be a terrible one. It might just be a good enough one. It's that comfortable mediocrity that stops us from taking risks, from growing, and from finding what really, truly makes us come alive. So the question I really want to leave you with is this. What is the just okay situation in your life that's quietly stopping you from going after something truly great?